I don't think so.
Welcome to Title Adam in the House, the podcast where Florida real estate gets real. Buyers, sellers, builders, and lenders. If you're in the game, then you belong in the house. Let's get you to the closing table fast and with less stress. Let's go. Hey, everybody, it's Title Adam. I'm in the house today with Todd Stiger. It's after hours. We're in here to talk about treasure hunting. I'm coming to you from the sunny studios at Premier Reputation Title. We're in Estero, and we also have a location in Bonita. If you're buying, selling, building, refinancing, or doing a deal in Florida or Michigan, tag me in. I'm local, I'm licensed, and I'm here to help. Todd, thanks for joining us today.
I
appreciate having you here and coming in after a long day here in Southwest Florida. It's hot outside. And this is, in some people's eyes, treasure hunting weather. And I know we've got a lot to talk about. We've talked about a lot already yet today, but I want to make sure to cover some of the high points. We're starting an Amazon storefront list for you for this episode that will talk specifically on treasure hunting. So we're going to be having some treasure hunting gear. We'll have some books that may help you if you're interested in treasure hunting yourself. We'll also put information to get in touch with Todd and his team in the show notes below. So having said that, I want to go back and talk a little bit about your start in treasure hunting. Okay. And I know that previously you had shared with me that the start was actually in Colorado. Can we go back to Colorado 2009?
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about how you started.
We basically did a trip out there. What started it was we went to an old gold mining town. It was a ghost town. And little quick detail, we found this old guy there that was selling deeds to an old gold mine. And it was just a tourist gimmick type thing. We bought a bunch of them. When we came back from the trip, we kind of had this gold fever, treasure fever.
Yeah.
Thinking about, wow, how neat it would be to, the people that pan for gold and finding treasure. And it just became this thing. It was kind of weird. I never thought of treasure before. My partner finds this book. It was basically a book about all the treasures, Florida treasures, stories about whether it was Civil War treasure, pirate treasure, shipwrecks. We just started reading through it. The next thing you know, we found a couple stories, and there were landmarks talking about some more local history things. The first one that ever struck our attention was Jose Gaspar.
I love that. Gasparilla. Absolutely. Everyone in Florida knows that name.
Everyone knows it. It's split down the middle between historians, whether or not he ever existed, But what happened was we started reading the book. It led us kind of down the road. We started seeing a lot of local landmarks, places we knew. It turned into, hey, what are you doing this weekend?
Yeah.
Let's get some canoes and head out to Peace River.
Let's throw him a bone. What's the title of that book that really kicked it off?
All right. So the original book, I do not know. Couldn't even begin to tell you. But what happened was that book led us on a path to researching other hardback books. The one that really stood out to us that sent us on the quest was a book called Peace River Stories.
Peace River Stories. And the trip to Colorado that actually was the catalyst, this was not a treasure-seeking trip. It all just happened.
Yeah.
But being in Colorado, you think about the Rockies, you think about mountains, you think about gold mining, you think about the gold rush, and that is an appropriate place for this to start. However, coming home thousands of miles away and then finding out that one of the greatest opportunities is right here in your backyard.
Exactly.
That is, I could see you getting excited over that.
It was just strange, my whole life being avid and outdoors, scuba diving, snorkeling, just whatever. It's never, I honestly can say I never really once sat back and said, I want to go treasure hunting. And it was something about, we went out there, it just sent us, we got almost like a gold fever. And, and if it wasn't for my partner finding that book, and the next thing you know, here we are.
And
15
years back in time, Google was out, internet was out, but the library was very popular too, as was hardback books and things like that. Metal Detectorist magazine was popular back, 15 years ago still. How did your initial immersion into treasure hunting. How was that? Was that more at the library? Was it online? Was it a little bit of a hybrid of both?
It was pretty much a hybrid. Like I said, when we started reading the books, we would use the internet as almost like a verification, but we also spent a lot of time. The Jose Gasparilla story at Peace River, we researched and chased that story for so many years.
Yeah.
I can't even begin to tell you. But one thing we used to do, which we used to enjoy, is we would find ourselves going to downtown Arcadia, like DeSoto County, going into the old records room. They actually have this room there, all the old records from back in the day that are handwritten, because DeSoto used to be part of Manatee County.
Right.
And so when they switch, I don't have the date off the top of my head, but all the old records are handwritten, whether it was property transactions or deeds, everything's handwritten. Well, they actually have a room there where it's kind of like of these old books, and it smells like it smells like you think it would smell.
Yeah, paper.
And they literally, we went in there. We wanted to do some record research about some theories were put together, some land that we knew. We wanted to find out who owned this land, that type of thing. And we go in and we tell them, hey, this is what we're doing. We're just, they said, follow us. A lady takes us down these stairs, opens up this door, puts us in this room, and just says, here you go.
At it.
And we're pulling out these books that even we're going down a rabbit hole and had nothing to do with anything we're there for.
You're there though.
Yeah. All these old books from the late 1800s and stuff. And just looking at this in 1890, someone wrote this, in this book there was all kinds of stuff, land transitions. It's all public record. So they just let us in there. And
I would bet you as recently as 25 years ago, that building probably was a smoking building too. So when you think about the condition of those books and documents.
It was crazy. Like I said, it smells like you would expect it to smell.
Yeah.
And you go in there and there were just tons of books, and they left us in there by ourselves.
Yeah, that's cool. I was going to ask you if you had to have some kind of pull credential.
No, they asked us not to photograph anything with a flash. They said don't use a flash, but they're like, oh, if you need copies of anything, whatever. They were the most, now I don't know. I mean, maybe things have changed since then.
Sure.
But it was the greatest.
Yeah,
and
that's really cool.
We went down this rabbit hole in there that I can't even tell you. We were looking up stuff that didn't even
had nothing to do with
treasure. We forgot why we were there.
Hunting.
We were just looking up stuff. And it was absolutely crazy. But so a lot of the research was that, going and trying to find old things like that. And that was part of the fun.
Well, tell me a little bit about how Arcadia plays into Gaspar, because the last time I was really looking into it, I was reading up about Captiva and how they said that was where he kept his female prisoners at. He would stop by and visit them and enjoy their company, and then he would head on out. And tell me a little bit about, and for those of us that are watching the episode that may not have a rich understanding of how that story went, tell us a little bit about his impact on the area and why you feel that there's still.
So it basically is like this. The story goes that F. Gasparilla existed. The story goes that, they are off the coast, around Charlotte Harbor. They went to attack a ship, but the ship was disguised. It was a U.S. warship. A fight ensued. Gasparilla's ship was damaged. He essentially threw himself overboard, tied to an anchor. I'm giving you the quick version.
Yeah.
The story goes that some crew members were on shore, okay, and they had unloaded a bunch of treasure, and when they saw this fight in Gaspar's ship getting damaged, they threw the treasure in some rowboats, and they took off up through Charlotte Harbor, and they rowed up Peace River.
Right.
Okay. The basic story goes, and there's a lot of variations, but the one we were following was, at some point upriver, the U.S. was chasing them. They went ashore. They had stumbled across a plantation, and they had turned around and bribed the plantation owner, okay, with some treasure, basically to hide out, to say that they're not there.
Hadn't seen you.
Yep, that type of thing. And from that point, it was that then they buried the treasure, and that there was all these maps attached to it. And then the story goes that there was a cabin boy who was Jose Bar's right-hand man, his name was Juan Gomez, that he kept the maps himself, and that basically no one ever went back for the treasure. The plantation owner's name was allegedly Lady Bogus. Okay. And that's the gist of how the story went. From that point on, people have been looking for it. There were a lot of things, whether or not he ever existed. In history, the interesting thing that we found was that the Bogus family existed along the Peace River.
Yeah.
Okay. That was a very predominant family. They owned a lot of land. Okay.
Mm.
So from the outside looking in, if someone tells you the story, hey, they stumbled across a Bogus plantation, they paid Lady Bogus. Well,
this is all kind of
during that time frame, there were Bogus people that lived in this area. Okay. So there were things like that we found that kind of cued us to say, man, maybe there's more to this.
Mm.
You know, this treasure was sought after. There were some famous treasure hunters that had went on it over the years. And the general consensus has always been, for the most part, it was fake. Okay. The whole story was fake. Our actual take on it is not to ruin anyone's thoughts out there, but we don't necessarily believe that Jose Gaspar was a real person. We believe that the stories being told by his cabin boy, Juan Gomez, he would tell the stories third person, saying that it was the pirate Jose Gaspar, when in reality it was himself. That he created these stories to protect himself from any kind of ramifications, law enforcement or whatever, you know, coming back to him saying, you violated these crimes, you know, that type of thing. So there's a lot to it. It's like I said, we worked that story for ever. I mean, just, it's so many hours of on the river, you know, different locations, talking to descendants. You know, there was a big thing where we found descendants that the Bogus family married into another family in that area back then, those times. And we actually tracked down descendants of that family. And that family, you know, we proceeded to meet him, and the guy's name was Vern, and we called him Uncle Vern. We stumbled across this, basically looking for connections to the past. These two families had merged one time back in the past, and we sat down with this guy, Vern, old guy. Like, he had some stories to tell.
Yeah. Linking generations past.
And let me tell you something. He would allow us to videotape him, and we would sit down in his garage or around a fire, and he would tell these stories. And the depth that he believed these stories that he was telling you, it's as sure as we're sitting in yellow chairs. This guy believed it.
Wasn't a yarn.
This guy, every essence of his being, where these are real stories. Stories that his grandfather told him about treasure that they found along Peace River. Stories that he had from when he was a kid of them going treasure hunting, and places they found, treasures that they found and weren't able to get to, and that were lost over the years. The stories this guy had were just unbelievable.
Yeah.
And it kept us like pushing forward on the story.
Yeah.
And the story ended up going, instead of just being Jose Gaspar straight line, it literally went like this.
Yeah.
And so then it started coming off to, he had these stories he believed, but was it really pirate treasure? Was it, do we know, did his family find something? I don't know. He believes his family did. You know, at one point we met his daughter, you know, and his daughter was probably in her, 40s or so. And one day we show up at his house and his daughter's there, and she's like, "Oh, you're here for the stories," and we happened to say something to her like, how do you not, and she said, "I've had to listen to these my entire life," but this guy believed everything he said, everything that his grandfather told him, or his grandfather's grandfather told him. He believed everything that he was saying, that there was not a single bit that he was making up or, adding on to. And that kept us alive and kept us like searching.
Because he can contribute as a treasure hunter by giving you information. But, your body, as you get older, you have to abandon some of that.
He gave us locations. At one point he was saying, if you guys find something, I don't even want any of the money. If anything comes monetarily, we would just like a donation to our church, because they were trying to build this church in Fort Denard, and which is just south of Arcadia. And he was saying, "Oh, we'd like to have a donation to the church." Blah blah blah.
Yeah,
just the nicest guy.
Yeah,
he had his stories. The number of locations that we went out weekend after weekend, pounding the ground, going to these spots that he showed us on maps. Oh, my grandfather this. Oh, my grandfather this. Oh, we searched here. We searched there. If the guy was making it up, he did a damn good job.
So convinced,
and he had us chasing after it.
Yeah,
but we were out there every weekend.
Yeah,
pounding the ground, going to different spots, and nonstop for years and years.
When I think about treasure hunting, I think about Goonies, right? Okay, but I think about title insurance a little bit, because old school titles were what was called meets and bounds descriptions. 30 paces from the rock by the oak tree, right? And so I think about old school treasure hunting like that, where it was almost a riddle to get to it. And when I think about Arcadia, when I think about older land plats, I think about, maybe you literally were reading books that talked about descriptions that were, is that item even going to be there anymore? Is that bridge still there? Did it wash out years ago? And so when you're looking at that time, were you looking at these old school descriptions, or what? I mean, because it's not your GPS coordinates at that time, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yes. And I'm going to tell you a quick, interesting story. So one of the things that we're following is one of the stories was talking about this gentleman was telling a story about when he was a child, and he went on this treasure hunt with his dad, and it was supposedly around the Fort Denard, Arcadia area. And he's telling a story about them driving and how they had to go across this long iron bridge, blah, blah, blah. So what happened was we actually got access to the University of Florida has a huge archive for aerial photos. And so we actually signed up, got permission to get their archives. You got to think of terminology, how it's changed. Aerial photos from 1940 are nothing like aerials from 2020.
Yeah.
So a lot of the stuff was hard to tell what it was. It took a lot of time, but we started getting old aerial photography, trying to find this stuff, trying to find the old routes of the roads. And we were basically trying to retrace this guy's story in this book of where he went. So this one day we are driving, and my partner and I were like, let's go to the Road and Bridge department down in DeSoto County. So, because we're asking all these people, and everyone was trying to tell us that the bridge in the story was this old railroad trestle. Okay. It's no longer there for a railroad that no longer exist. And they're like, oh, it's that. And we're like, it just doesn't make sense, because the number one, when this story is taken, when the guy's telling the story, I don't believe the railroad was there. And number two, if the railroad was there, they're not driving their car down this railroad track, So anyway, we decided to stop by the Road and Bridge Department in DeSoto. We walk in the office. It's a little office. It's probably about this big. That's how big the whole office is. There's two people working in there. We walk in. We tell them who we are. We said, hey, you guys know of throughout the history of, because in the story, it actually says at one point that bridge no longer exists. Okay, so we know it no longer exists. We're asking them, hey, do you guys know about this? Everyone's looking at each other. No, we don't know, blah, blah. One lady stands to us and says, you know what? I know someone I can call. Call some old guy, multi-generation, live in the area, gets him on the phone, puts on speakerphone. We said, tell him who we are. We're like, yeah, we know, we're following this story, doing some research. We're looking for an old iron bridge. He says, I know where that is. And we're like, my partner Mike and I look at each other like, where? Because we're expecting him to tell us the railroad trestle. He says, oh, no. You go up. He's like, pull up a map of the river. He's like, now start here. Now take your finger, go up, and you're going to see this S, go through the other S. He's like, and then you're going to go up there by Old Dock. I can't remember the guy's name, but Old Dock, such and such place, and blah, blah, blah. And see that spot right there by the S? The guy's like, that's the river.
Wow.
That's where the old iron bridge was. And we're like, interesting. So immediately we leave there.
writing that
Oh,
down. Yeah.
We wrote it all down. Get the guy's number in case you need to follow up.
Mhm.
As soon as we get home, we pull up fresh aerial view, Google Earth.
Google Earth.
We start zooming in, looking, and you're like, kind of look at it a certain way. It kind of looks like there's an old road there. Immediate to the archives. Start pulling up photos from 1980, 1970, as far back as we can find.
Cool.
Find it. And we're like, there used to be a road here. Next thing is in the boat. Head out in the boat. Go out there. Go exactly where the guy says. You have to go back through these little cuts in the ring where we're pulling along in the boat. Water's too shallow. They're sitting in the crossing the river are these big steel metal
Unreal.
pylons.
I mean, you must have, when you saw it,
you
God, I
have
can't
no
imagine,
idea.
bro.
I have goosebumps just telling the story because
yeah.
the way we looked at each other, it was like someone just handed me a suitcase of money.
It's possible.
I'm
Yeah.
like, the person that wrote this story knew this bridge exists. This bridge has been gone since like the 60s or something like that. And it got washed away by some hurricane or some flood. I don't even remember the details. But anyway, all these people who are from this area know nothing about this bridge. But this old timer, however many generations, he knew about it.
Yep.
That bridge has been gone forever. Since before any of us were born, we see this bridge, the remnants of this bridge. And we're like, this story that this guy wrote about is based on facts.
Yeah.
This guy knew this bridge existed, and he's telling this story. Oh, we drove across this bridge. Once we got across the bridge, we parked our car. We walked east, blah, 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 along the river. Now what are we doing? We're replicating that.
Yep.
Okay.
Like a surveyor.
Exactly.
Reading
that word for it. Oh, we parked on the west side. Oh, we walked this far. At this point, we're on the west side of the river, blah, blah. And we turn around and replicate that. But going back to the thing of old maps, whatever, but like finding that bridge, finding the fact that it was something that wasn't existent on any map. Even old aerials didn't show that. But we find that bridge and the remnants of it because someone tells us it's there.
Do you remember how old of the map you had to go back to find it? Are we talking, was it 80 years?
So
60
we
years?
could never find the bridge on any map.
Oh, so the oldest one showed a potential for a road.
Yes. Because the way the road went, because some of the current roads weren't there. And so basically how it was is the story goes, the gentleman, when he was a kid, they lived up by Sarasota, would be considered now Sarasota. And they had to drive down, which basically at that time you would have came back down like 72, State Road 72, and turn on like 769, whatever. So, but the old road used to go that way.
Did you get an indication of how long that bridge had been wiped out?
Yeah, it was like from the 40s or 30s or something like that.
70 years?
Oh, yeah.
And in 70 years, such a critical piece of information was lost. It makes you wonder the information over 200 years ago that was lost, 300 years, where it's like, the new guys come into town and they actually listen to what the old guy said. And now you've got new perspective that's been right under everyone's. I'm sure there's people out in Arcadia that treasure hunt.
The number of people that had no clue that this bridge existed. What was just, it blew us away.
Yeah.
And this lady makes this one phone call, this guy says, oh yeah, go here, blah, blah. And the fact that we went there and that everything lined up, that was where the old bridge was. That was where, and he told us, oh, that's the old road, because the road used to be a dirt road. It used to be like a grade. And he's like, oh yeah, that's where the old grade was, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
It's like, you have to be kidding me. And we found that was.
I can only imagine. So at that point, when you say you were in the boat, were you in like skinny water, kayak, canoe kind of boat, or like a motorboat?
Motorboat. Peace River for the most part is motorboatable.
Yeah.
During the summertime.
Yeah.
In the winter, it gets real low.
Yeah.
But yeah, we immediately ramped and had to get out there because we're like, we got to find it. Because you couldn't see it. Well, number one, you can no longer access it from land. The property's all owned by somebody now.
Right.
So
and you got to use the water.
Everyone owns everything now.
Yeah.
And so there's no way you could get to it. So the only way we could go was by water. Were we trespassing? Probably. Okay. There was no trespassing signs. There was no fence.
Yeah.
But what we did go on shore. And when we started proceeding on shore, interpreting based on Google Earth and our phones and what appeared to be the road, we actually found an old asphalt road.
Oh.
It was completely overgrown. and that went on as far as it got to a point where it was no longer inhabitable. The road had, which maybe it didn't collapse itself over time. Maybe the county at some point
broke it a little bit up,
cut
get
ditches in
people
it
from coming out. Yeah,
you know, like cut big cutouts in it,
Mhm.
and so you could no longer barely even walk it. And when we found that stuff, but that was, you know, the only way we could get there is by boat. You know, it's most of the areas that we want to go to by car, can't get there.
A lot of people think of treasure hunting as digging. And, you know, the water holds a lot of treasure, man. But now think about how in 100 years also the bridge was out, the road was done. But think about how Big Sugar and development in the state of Florida has changed the natural flow of water anyway, which is carrying some of that. I mean, would you say,
how about just hurricanes?
right? Well, and you're far inland, so there's less of it.
But in 2004, Arcadia
They
got the smackdown.
Yeah, they got
from
whacked.
Charlie.
Yeah,
you know,
and that stirred everything up out there.
The Peace River was what I mean. That crested. I mean, it took down, you know, massive trees. You know, all kinds of. Arcadia got the smackdown.
Yeah, that
from
was a
Peace
major
River.
storm.
Yeah,
major
when that came through Charlotte Harbor like that, it pushed all that water up there and knocked all those trees and
redug channels.
Yeah.
Everything was completely
that,
different.
that was a
from there.
huge thing, and that was one thing that we kept in mind as we were following it. Is that, you know, I could pull up an aerial map, let's say from 1940, not really getting much past that. Okay, I could pull one up and say, here's the river. It looks almost the same, you know, but there's different sandbars, different shallow points, you know, along the river that have changed. Yes, from everyday storms.
Yeah.
You know, and like I said, it's, you know, there are stories of people finding treasure that they have found on the banks of Peace River.
Wow.
You know, and that's, I mean, I know people find a lot of shark's teeth there, but there are documented stories of people finding treasure on there.
When I think of Peace River and I think of treasure hunting, I think a lot of arrowheads and shark's teeth. And that's a natural treasure.
Yes.
That's certainly something that people
love it.
People love to find. When you're out hunting, are you hunting, period?
Yes.
Or, okay, so you're not the guy that says, if it's not hitting my metal detector, I'm not interested.
I'll take
artifacts.
I'll take an old railroad spike from 1890. I'll take any of that.
Yeah.
It's, you know, even stupid things like a beer can. Okay. And how, you know, a beer can when I was a kid doesn't look as the same as a beer can now.
Full tops.
Different thing. You know, and, you know, even to find that and you say to yourself, wow, that beer can's been here 50 years.
Yeah.
You know, this beer can's 40 years old.
Yeah.
You know, 50 years old.
Yeah.
Even that gets a little bit exciting, even though it means nothing, has no value.
Yeah.
You know, we find the one area we were looking, there used to be an old railroad that they tore down in the late 1800s. And, you know, when we were out there one time and we found a whole bunch of old railroad spikes, you know, and we all thought that was the coolest thing.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, oh, this is a piece of history.
Yeah.
You know, it's someone else's garbage, it's junk, but it's, you know, this is a piece of history. And that's what excites us as well.
Yeah. If you found a can that was 50 years old, then you can bet that the person that was holding that can 50 years ago might have dropped some change, a $50, you know, a silver dollar or some kind of coin. And that's where I get really excited.
That's what you're hoping.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so just to talk about equipment, you know, I use the Garrett Ace 350, nice and easy metal detector, got it on Facebook Marketplace, used it for a couple of years, sold it. Never should have sold it because now I've not been able to find one for a great deal again. And I just don't want to buy one brand new. But the metal detector was great. And I would set the sensitivity on it to pick up everything. Yeah. Because a lot of people don't know this, but a lead sinker will ring up the exact same as a gold nugget on a metal detector.
It'll tell you right on there, gold.
80%
gold.
I grabbed a lot of egg sinkers off the beach thinking that I was getting ready to get rich. And I found a toe ring one time, questionable whether it was plated, you know, but it was still
a treasure.
Shiny. I found a very dainty bracelet, like a little chain. Again, could have been bubblegum machine for all I really knew, but I grabbed it. A lot of pop tops, a lot of coins, and not necessarily coins that were worth more than their face, but I liked finding a 1965 quarter and saying, wow, okay, so it's, you know, it's been 50 years since
Yeah.
since this
Someone-
fell out of someone's pocket. And 50 years ago, a quarter meant a hell of a lot more than it does today. And somebody might have actually said, oh, I needed that for the payphone when I got back to shore or whatever. So I love to treasure hunt. I love that idea. And then I wanted to ask you specific to your time in the boat, landowner access, talking to people ahead of time. I mean, I'm sure with treasure hunting, there's a big element of beg forgiveness versus permission. How does that work? I mean, do you just go out and kind of do what you're going to do?
Yeah.
If you're digging, that's going to be different,
So
obviously.
so we do, and I'm not just saying this because this is, you're recording this, but we actually do try to obey the laws. We'll go into some areas and we'll run equipment, but let's say some state property. If we know we're not allowed to dig, we will not dig, because the state will give you permission to dig. So like we have an archaeologist, okay, that we kind of made friends with through this, and they have told us multiple times when we find some place that we need to dig that they have no problem applying for the permit.
Cool.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it is possible it takes longer, but we will run equipment in some places. We might, cross the line. We may not need to run to scan an area, that type of thing. But, we honestly try not to break the law.
Yeah.
We don't want that reputation.
Yeah. It doesn't help the whole
and that's
hobby.
And that's what happened back in the 80s and stuff, especially even jumping back to Jose Gaspar treasure. That was such a huge thing that people were looking for back then, that people were going to jail. They were destroying all of the
Indian burial
yes,
grounds.
thank you.
And,
Couldn't get out. All of the shell mounds, digging them all up, destroying with bulldozers, and it's all recorded history. And it got to the point where there was nothing in place to protect them, and people were it was a free for all.
Oh, wow.
And people were destroying all this stuff, and they got so by where everyone turned their nose up. We're like, well, you're not treasure hunting here because you're going to destroy. Now everyone thinks that. So now they have protocols in place to save and protect, and they're pretty good. We have been told no way more times than we've been told yes.
Got to ask.
But we have to ask.
Yeah.
And but we do ask. We try to do it the right way. As far as private landowners, I'm going to be honest with you. We've yet to find a private landowner that you walk up and you talk to them, you knock on the door, and you say, hey, look, I got a lead that thinks there might be a treasure on your property. All I want is to dig it. Blah, blah, blah. Let's go.
Let's go. Yeah. Get my shoes on.
Let's go. Yeah. We had a spot in Arcadia not too long ago where we were following, wasn't a Jose Gaspar, it was another story we were following. Someone told us about the supposed treasure was buried at this guy's house. Well, the property had changed hands. Someone else had bought it. We got a hold of the guy on the phone and said, hey, man, we got this, spot we want to dig on your property. We're not going to destroy anything. We'll cover it back up. The guy's like, meet me there on Saturday. Guy shows up with equipment.
Oh, he's excited.
Oh yeah. This guy's thinking, hell, he's like, hell yeah. He shows up with a tractor, like 3 or 4 laborers ready to dig. We're all standing around like we didn't dig a damn thing.
That's funny.
We had run a GPR over it, and we wanted to, and we didn't have super good info. We were getting some anomalies on the GPR, and we wanted to dig them, but it was on private property. And we asked the guy, that homeowner, he rushed out there, came out with brought his own equipment, brought laborers.
Even better when they do that, right?
And we tell them, hey, if we have a good idea, we'll enter like a salvage agreement. We have.
That's what I was going to ask you. What happens because they go, thanks for stopping by.
We have one right there, and that basically is that we print out. We have them sign electronically, and we'll tell them to us. It's not so much what I love to find. $100 million treasure, yes, but also the search, the quest, is a treasure of its own. And for this landowner, for you to say, hey, what do you want? 50%, whatever, 50%, and I'll cover all the expenses. We just want to do it. Okay, we've yet to find
someone that said
no, that said, get off my property, get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
Well, I do take it back. We did have one corporation, which I'm trying to decide if I should call them out or not, but they had a bunch of property that we really wanted to dig on, and that we were running metal detectors on their property, but we weren't digging. And it was
getting hits though.
And so we decided to go the corporate route. We contact the local major corporation in this area, and we contact them and we tell them the whole spiel. You know, they put us in touch with their legal department. You know, we say, hey, look, we don't want anything from you guys.
Mm-hmm.
We just want access to your property. We'll handle everything. Okay. If we find something, blah, blah, blah. You know, probably 3 or 4 phone calls. Then their legal department calls us, says, come in for a meeting, you know. And they said, okay, well, we want to see your maps.
Uh-huh.
We
Yeah.
said, no way. Because these maps are given
They
to us.
got dollar signs in their eyes.
These maps are given to us. It was a completely different story, but these maps are given to some of us that were passed down through family,
Mm-hmm.
and of these supposed treasures that were buried out in an area called Devil's Garden, out by Clewiston, if you know that area at all. And there were about 12 different locations, and they wanted to see the map. And the maps were created by the guy who originally was searching for the treasure that his family had buried. It was told to him by his family member, you know, before they died, this is where they're at. But the locations were on survey plots,
Mm-hmm.
but they were not to scale.
Oh.
It was like a circle or an X, but it wasn't to scale to where, okay,
Pinpoint.
so like on the survey map, it might show a little creek, but it doesn't say how many feet from that creek.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like finding a big needle in a
Yeah.
big haystack.
Mhm.
But again, we wanted to do it. They seemed all gung ho. Then they drop a bomb. They're like, well, you have to share your maps. Or no way.
On that one in particular, how big would the plot, like how big was your target? Knowing that it was a big needle, or, you know, you didn't have it. Was it an acre? Was it 50 acres?
So
How
the
close could you
land
get it?
itself were hundreds of acres.
Yeah.
Of what they owned. But like I said, what had happened was that they were like, I think the survey plots were from the 70s, and the family member basically told the other family member, I remember this. I remember this road, and this road is no longer here.
It's like the Iron Bridge story.
Yes,
Yep.
this road no longer. It used to go like this, but then it doesn't go like this anymore. It goes like this, but the one that goes like this is still there. Okay, but now the part that goes like this is private property.
Yeah.
Okay, it's owned by this corporation. Oh, I remember this, and then there was this pond, and so the search area we needed would have been, you know, it wouldn't be like you take me outside and be like, it's somewhere in this property. It was acres,
Yeah.
but it was.
You weren't asking to rip up 100 acres of their property necessarily. You really had.
We had about 10 viable spots that we wanted to actually dig.
Yeah.
But again, they said, we want to see your maps.
Yeah.
You know, and then of course, and inside we're saying, this is in the middle of nowhere. Okay. And so part of us saying, and we could have went there at any time we wanted.
And they would have never known.
And no one would have ever known.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, but we stopped. We never went back to that treasure, because now we're like, now they're going to be, because
You got a barrier.
well, we were probably borderline trespassing when we were just running metal detecting equipment on their property. But our biggest thing was, now it's, you know, we have a target on our back. We don't want them to, you know, we told you can't come here type thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, we want to try to stay within the law.
Yeah.
So we backed off of it. So we had these maps, and we had this amazing story about this treasure in Devil's Garden, and that it's just unbelievable. But we just rolled them up, and
You ever watch to see if that property's changed hands, or if they've ever
it's
keep an eye on it? Yeah.
the same corporation owns it. They actually sold a bunch of it to the state not too long ago.
For conservation?
2023, yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yep.
So at least
Yep.
it's going to be conserved.
Well,
Yeah.
and the thing is about, so without getting into too much and boring details about the old thing, but so it's in an area of Devil's Garden, out there in Clewiston, or towards Clewiston, but the area is completely unchanged. Okay, so you know, we get a lot of these treasures, we get a lot of maps, and I'm going to touch base on one other thing. I'll tell you this, but our biggest obstacle is progress.
Mhm.
Things have changed.
Development.
Yep.
Yeah.
what used to be a dirt lot is now a parking lot.
Yep.
Which is now it's now a 10-story building. That's too many times. Too many times that'll come. And the biggest thing about out there that we enjoyed, there's nothing out there. There's nothing out there. It is nothing but cow fields and pastures. There's no housing complexes.
Right.
There's no that
the
land.
ground's not even been tilled.
Yeah, and that treasure that we're looking for was only from like the early 1900s, 1930s, around there. So we're not even talking about something. And the only thing that's really changed out there is they've redone some of the roads, but the basics are still there. The main thoroughfares are there, the main highways. And when we first got turned on to that treasure, I always would tell everybody, like my partners and stuff, and I would tell them, I'm a very, if you ever watch our videos on YouTube or Facebook, whatever, I'm against everything. I don't believe I'm a facts. Okay.
Yeah, I've seen you kind of
yes,
pour water on a couple of theories.
So and that's just how I am. And so when we would talk about the story, the tale and Devil Garden and the whole tale, and I would tell them, F this tale. The story is very interesting. Okay. The fact that there's maps and everything. Okay. If it was true, it would probably be, even though the area is so vast, we would have the highest probable odds of possibly finding that treasure because nothing's been developed.
Yeah.
Because everything
Yep.
is the exact same. Hurricanes haven't affected it. The road, it hasn't been flooded. There hasn't been this. It
Yeah.
hasn't been that. It's like, it's literally, besides a couple roads being changed, it's
Untouched.
yeah. And I would always tell everyone in my group, I would say, I was so into that treasure because of that.
It's there.
Yes,
Yeah.
because if we had a chance of finding it, I mean, one thing that happens is people follow our Facebook, they follow YouTube. We are contacted daily with people
Leads.
of treasures,
Yeah.
family treasures their grandfather told them about, maps that they have in their family, asking for us to look for it with them.
Hey, if you've ever got anything like that and you're not sure who to talk to, Todd and his group are really great
Absolutely.
at this. They would love to help you with it.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear the story about it if somebody brings it in.
Oh yeah, we've done plenty.
Yeah.
We've gone to Missouri
Yeah.
to help someone look for
Yeah.
a treasure on their
That's
property.
crazy.
I had
Yeah.
someone call us. That ended up being a little weird, but we got on a plane. 4 of us got on a plane, took off to Missouri. This guy had maps, had this, and it was on some family property. He wanted these caves explored and stuff, and we're like, hey, we're not cave explorers, but we are today.
Yeah.
It's as long as I'm not doing anything too crazy.
Yeah.
But it's people are constantly contacting us, and the problem is people say, oh, I have this story of my grandfather this, my great grandfather this, and then we'll start researching it, and we'll come down to it. We'll find good locations, and we go to the shopping mall.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a parking lot. Oh, it's a bank. So what are we going to do now? There's nothing we can do.
And I know that over the years, there were developers that found treasures and just didn't say anything.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
just kept it nice and quiet and took it home. And so some of those have been found, but in an area that's not been developed, you've got a reason to believe that it's just tucked
but
right.
that one thing in Double Garden, it always wanted to stay in the back burner because I always thought if there was ever a one, because it was so undeveloped. Because even Peace River, along Peace River is undeveloped, but it's changed so much because of the hurricanes, because of the flooding, all that any landmarks that would have been there, that so many things have changed
Yeah.
that it is almost impossible. Unless you can find something definitive, but out there it's because everything was undeveloped and kind of untouched.
Yeah.
It was always, but as soon as that corporation told us that, it kind of shut us down. And we, like I said, we rolled up the maps and said, maybe another day, and moved on to the next one type thing.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think a lot about treasure hunting, and I think about, this movie, The Truman Show, for example, where he wants to go out and explore the world.
Yes.
And the teacher goes, it's already been all discovered.
Yep.
Don't worry about it. And a lot of people, when you talk about wanting to treasure hunt, they go, dude, it's 2025. Everything's been discovered. It's not been discovered. Go back just 100 years ago, people were burying cash and coffee cans in their backyard.
Absolutely.
There are so many treasures yet to be found. Yeah. And over the years, junk, metal, false finds are going to be in the ground as well. But I refuse to believe that in any area, all the treasure's been found.
I'm with you on that. And like I said, our biggest enemy is progress.
Yeah.
The more lands get developed, I mean, even when we were searching the Jose Gaspar treasure, the number of people that had worked on that whole story, but everything was so different back then.
Mhm.
They didn't have as many restrictions. They could just, you know, there was many as many communities built up and housing,
Yeah.
and everything was a lot different. And so, you know, it was weird. It's progress. We show up and it's like we get excited. Oh, we think we found this. We show up. Oh, there's a house there.
Yeah.
You know? And usually it's a lot of it's commercial. You
Mhm.
know, we had some good ones up around Boca Grande.
Yeah.
So the old before you get on Boca Grande, there used to be this old little area, this bunkhouse, and there's a story that so they moved the bunkhouse. It used to be there. It's like a historical thing now. The county moved it, and preservation moved it to another park up the road, so people could kind of see its history. But we were inundated with these stories from locals from the Inglewood area, Port Charlotte, about it was attached to Jose Gaspar. That story that he had buried this treasure at this spot. And again, sometimes when people tell these stories, they can get tainted because someone might tell a story of saying, "Oh, this pirate buried someone or buried this treasure," but then they don't know who the pirate is. So then the next time someone tells a story,
It was
yes,
and then
someone
they just
says,
throw a name in.
"Well, whose story what pirate was it? Gaspar? Yeah, it was Gaspar." And so it
Becomes
taints,
fact.
yes, it taints
Yeah.
history.
Yeah.
But when we get these first-hand accounts from these people, like, "Oh, my grandfather this, my grandfather that,"
Mhm.
you know, and a lot of those people, what we found is they stopped telling these stories because people stopped.
We've heard this, Grandpa.
Yeah, and people stopped listening.
Yeah.
You know,
And the newer generation's not out metal detecting because they're online.
and so when we find these people, and we want, we'll be there for hours for listening to this story, and we'll record every minute. We'll take down every note we can, and it's like they're the key to unlocking some of this stuff. Unfortunately, it's like I wish I would have heard that story 20 years ago
Sure.
before they tore down all the trees and put, know, and built that subdivision
Yeah.
there. But that's what's happening now is that we're getting constant place leads,
Yeah.
and they're just not, we primarily focus. We don't do a lot of like beach treasure hunting, but our whole thing is we like the story. We feel that our specialty is research, separating fact from fiction, so to speak. That's one of our real strong points, and we're really good at that. And that's what we like. We like to be able to get the information and have someone tell us. The problem is, it's like time is our enemy.
Yeah.
That we heard these stories.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just a matter of if I would have heard this story 5 years ago, we would have had land.
Yeah.
On. And now,
You ever hear one where you go, "Oh shit, we only have maybe a month to get to this site before they start," I'm sure that there's got to be, because that might be the driver for people to tell you, "Hey, the spot that they're developing right now, my grandpa told me one time about an old, bank robber that would, whatever." There's stories.
It happens all the time. And we have, and from all over the country, other countries, even,
Yeah, sure.
sending us stuff and saying, "Oh, but they're going to do this," or, "Oh, I need help this." And it's very interesting. But like I said, we take the information, we tell people, send us what you can. And then we want to kind of research.
Fact check it a little bit. Now, when you mentioned that you can ask permission and that the government would allow you to dig, but you're not keeping anything you find. You've got to report everything to, like, almost more liability just by doing it. Yeah. And they would probably not even pay you for finding the stuff if you did, right? So how does that work?
Yeah, so it's kind of weird how it falls into place if you did find something, how much the state will take control.
Yeah.
Right away. The state actually will take quite a bit of control. It almost kind of turns you off.
Yeah.
We're like, I don't want to tell anybody.
Yeah.
But then it comes down to it is, let's say you found something. What are you going to do with it?
Right.
You're
not going to be able to move it without.
Let's just even say 30 years ago, okay, you stumble across a chest with coins in it. 30 years ago, you probably could have found someone to get rid of that.
Fence it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you kind of got away with it.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen now.
Now you got the Mona Lisa today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now it's not going to happen.
And the internet, people.
Yeah. Oh yeah. One word.
It's
it's one person. One person you're going to tell is going to tell someone, and next the feds are knocking on the door.
Don't tell anybody, but yeah.
So to do that now, we talk about that story all the time about if we find something and it's the problem is you're almost you have to turn it in.
Yeah.
But then it's also at the same time, it's like,
I think museums would probably give you a nice donation
yeah,
to your.
but at the same time though, how about the credibility? Okay. Goes a long way.
Yeah.
How about the, the credibility or someone taking you're being more serious, like someone taking you more serious,
Yeah, confirmed fines. Yeah.
Something like that. And that to us also is like an ultimate, it's like, oh, okay, maybe not so much. Let them have that, because we have taken some things that we've in the salvage agreements and have said you can have 100%. We have one that's down by the Everglades and that we have been working on off and on. And, we had told them originally, we're like, we don't want any monetary
Looking for the
value.
find.
Yeah, we want credit for the find.
Catch and release fishing,
Yep.
basically.
Yep.
We want the
We
thrill
want
of the
credit
fight.
for the find and that, that type of thing. That's what we
Yeah.
want. It's like I said, it's weird. It's hard to explain, but it's like the adventure is so much. I mean, my happy place is when we are working on planning the next adventure, going on the next adventure. If you watch some of those videos, or see them on Facebook, it's, how we interact, how it's, none of that is staged.
Yeah.
None of it's, scripted. None of it's fake.
Yeah.
That's us having a good time.
Yeah.
And that is, we argue, we fight, we this, half the time we don't get anything accomplished. But it's like, I'm ready to do it all over again.
Yeah.
I've got all day long and
passion, man.
sign me up tomorrow.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yep. When you look at a plot with your team, I think of like when they were trying to find MH370, the plane that disappeared.
Yep.
When you're searching a plot and you've got a defined area, and let's say it's, a square, how do you guys work as a team to make sure that you've exhausted it? Is it a grid? Do you do it like a search and rescue, kind of assigned out? Exactly. What is the best way to do it as a treasure hunter?
That's pretty much how we do it. We don't want to necessarily go on to in 1 acre piece of property and have someone tell me somewhere on this acre is a glass jar, okay, with coins in it. I don't want that.
Yeah.
We want someone we want to find someone, friend, relative, who's going to say, well, there used to be a chicken coop and it was next to the chicken coop.
Yeah.
The chicken coop's not there anymore, but you can see it on this old area, or here's a picture.
Where would a chicken coop be?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then that's where we're going to go.
Yeah.
We grid it. That's exactly what we do.
Yeah.
We actually have a little 2-man GPR that we will walk and we'll record the targets. And then we'll go back and get permission
and say, we think we've got.
But it's, we don't have a doctrine in it. So we get a lot of false targets with it. Sure. It's kind of like how you're saying, we keep the sensitivities high because we don't want to miss anything.
Yeah.
And so we'll get some targets and then we'll go and dig and we'll waste our time.
You ever see anything big, like an old plow or something that's down there and you just go, there's something huge down there.
We have not found anything like that yet.
Okay.
We did get this, we searched this plot of land that was, there's a house there now, and similar story. This guy supposedly buried something back there, blah, blah, blah. And we're doing it, and we start getting these weird hits, and we start digging, and it's like we find this old license plate. And then we start finding all these old car parts.
Okay.
And we're making
scrapyard.
Yeah, we're making a joke, but it's all in this one area. We're like, where's the rest of the car? Like, we're slowly building a car here because it's like, oh, here's like what looks like a start. Yeah, that's exactly what was happening. It was so funny, and we were recording it. We're like we're just waiting to okay, we're gonna.
Where's the engine?
Yeah. Where's the rest of this car at?
Yeah.
And it ended up being just a few. It was like a tail light. It was just funny because it's like, are we gonna literally find a car right here? And but to go back to your question about plat, we do grid it, but we want better info before we do, because for us to go out and say a 1 acre piece of property and to go grid by grid, the number of false targets we'll get, so it will, we would have to focus.
Now the equipment that you're talking about, this is not an amateur piece of equipment, but tell me just a large metal detector. Is that what it is you're talking about? The GPR?
It's
like a lawnmower, or
it's handheld. So it has a, and you know what? I can't even say the name of it. And so we bought it, and it actually has multi-functions. It has one unit we can use as a metal detector, but then we can take the same unit that you wear on you, and it has a 2-man unit. It's probably about like this.
Uh-huh.
One person each side, and you can walk. And that's how we grid it. And it'll read it. The other person can read it. And then when you hit something, you hit a void, an anomaly, or you get some kind of hit, that we can mark it on there. And then it will
Is it using sonar or some kind of LiDAR kind of?
Yeah. Yes to both.
Because that's what they're doing down in Central America now, and they're finding all these ancient structures.
So this is, I would say, maybe not total amateur entry level, but like Mel Fisher's crew isn't using this equipment. You know what I mean? They have probably 3 models ahead of this.
Sure.
We saved up to
gives you a competitive edge though as a treasure hunter.
It does, and we like it, and a lot of it makes good. We like to record everything. It makes good video. It gets people interested. But we do have basics that I'll tell you a quick story. When we first got started, we had just a couple little cheap metal detectors, and my one partner had went and bought a White's metal detector. Well, he one day calls White's and tells them and says, "Hey, we're this amateur treasure hunters, and we're starting this thing. We got this, and would you sponsor us and send us some equipment?" And White's responded and said, "We have this magazine." Now, this was years ago. It's called Discovery. Mm-hmm. It's a magazine that White's metal detector puts out. Mm-hmm. And they said, if you write an article for this magazine to publish, we'll give you equipment.
Let's go.
I wrote an article. So technically, you'll hear in some of our videos around the field joking, we'll joke about me being a published author because this was in a magazine. I wrote this article.
Dr. Stiger,
yeah. I wrote this article. They published it in the magazine. And for that, White sent us several.
And do you stand behind that brand? I mean, outside of being, having a sponsorship,
yes,
do you feel like?
This was quite a few years ago, so that equipment is kind of not as current. We really only run like 2 metal detectors. One is a Garrett, and the other one is a White. But it's the biggest thing we use is that GPR.
Yeah.
And because we can cover so much more area with it, and it goes a lot deeper.
Yeah, I get a vibe almost like a fish finder when you talk about it, where it would, like you said, it was discover a void if there was an area where there was,
and it'll basically show on
a cavern or
it'll show it on a map. It'll show you the difference. It'll show you. It doesn't show you water, which can really throw you off on signals if the water table is shallow. It will send back all kinds of weird readings. It'll almost give you false hits, and you'll be like, "Oh wow, this is only 10 feet." And you get down to about 6 feet, and all of a sudden water. You're like, okay.
Sinkholes, would it identify that in an alternate application?
It's kind of like we all have our role for the real treasure hunters. Mm-hmm. And my role is not technical or equipment. And my primary job is to be there to...
I've seen you ball bust in some of the...
Oh, yeah. Deflate everyone's ego and research. Those are my 2 things.
Yeah.
To get specifics, we would definitely have a round 2 of this and bring my partner in.
Yeah, I love that.
That's his job.
Yeah, that's his specialty.
He studies that stuff. He keeps equipment in his house. He basically would call us up and say, "Hey, we're all going to chip in because we're buying this equipment."
Yeah.
And we're like, "How much is it?" "Oh, it's $2,000. What the? But that's his thing.
Yeah.
And, but we all have our roles. I'm there for moral support. You'll never see me dig. Okay. You can pretty much go back to every video I've ever made. You'll never see me dig. We all have our roles, and digging and running equipment is not really, one of mine. I'll carry stuff when we're trucking through the woods, and I'll make my opinion known. But my primary job is to keep everybody grounded.
Yeah.
Because a couple of them can get really,
Yeah, if you think you're on something hot, you can really
they'll fly with it. We're to the point where you're like, I got a bridge I'll sell you in Arizona.
Yeah.
But
I saw one of the videos. As a matter of fact, I'm going to try to insert it here.
Todd is like my first mate.
Mike and I have been longtime friends. He's a pretty boy. He loves his hair done. He doesn't like to get dirty.
Todd likes to disprove Mike.
For the age of it, this cabin might have belonged to Juan Gomez.
I don't go that old. This is from 2004.
No way. No way.
This is about 16 years old. It would have never survived the hurricane in 2004. It would have never survived it.
Just love that kind of, I love that team environment because you have to have an anchor. You have to have someone that says, "Hold on, cowboy."
That's
like
and that's it. So
come
Mike,
back down to reality for a
so
second.
Mike is our leader. So
Yeah.
quick backstory: Mike and I'm not going to reveal how old I am, but Mike and I met. We actually went to the same high school in Cape Coral. We had both went to Cape High. He's a couple years older than me, but I actually met him because he worked with my best friend. I actually met Mike when I was like 17. Okay, Mike would have been, I think he's like 2 years older than me. He would have been like 18, 19. And that's actually how I met him. So I've actually known him all this
A long time.
And we went through a period where we didn't really talk or communicate more. Our lives were different, kids, whatever. And then this one day, back in early 2000, I went to a job interview at a repossession company. And I walk in the door, and Mike is sitting there. And I'm like, what are you doing here? And he's like, oh, I work here. I'm the office manager, blah, blah, blah. Basically tells the owner, hey, hire this kid, And from that point on, Mike and I have pretty much been entwined because what happened that was shortly after that, Mike and I ended up purchasing that repo company. So for many, many, many years, Mike and I were business partners. And pretty much from 2002, Mike and I have been entwined.
Yeah.
Everything we do, even though we don't have the company together anymore, stuff like that, we have this.
Yeah.
We do things together. We
Probably the same dynamic too of
yes.
Offsetting.
And Mike has
offsetting
always been. If you ever watch the videos, this is Jose Gaspar. That's him. Everything that he does is 100%. And my job is to keep him grounded.
Yeah.
And but so that back and forth thing, that's real. That's not people all the time. Oh, you guys. Oh, did someone write that?
No, it's so good though.
It's legit. That's how Mike is. But we've been entwined for so long. We're so close. But Lauren in our group that's Mike's wife. So I've known Lauren since before they got married. And Lauren used to work at our company, and Lauren was our secretary. And then I made Mike fire Lauren because they started to date. And I said, I'm not
going to work.
Yes. And so, but now look, now they're married. But yeah, so they, we're all just, we've known each other, the other guy, Aaron, in the group, it's like Aaron and I just have known each other for years. But before we got into treasure hunting, it was friend of a friend, like we both know the same person. We know each other in a circle of friends. And just our dynamic of us being together is, I just love them to death. And it's just amazing, like group, like of how they are. But like that whole story with like that cabin, that's how it is every time.
I think that was what got me hooked. I'm a subscriber to the channel myself. And I watched that and thought if it wasn't produced, then that's true magic. So you guys got that vibe together. That's actually really good.
We've actually been on a couple TV shows. We did a show called Call the Wild where we did an episode with them, which I'm not even sure if it's on Travel Channel anymore. It's the Kiefer brothers. They have their own hunting show. It was called Call the Wild, and they came down there, contacted us, wanted us to do an episode. That was a lot of fun. Those guys were so cool. They were so personable. We did an episode with Expedition Unknown with Josh Gates. We did that one, and that was our first real look at how they do those reality shows. That they're so like, you don't have any time to be yourself.
Yeah,
it's
okay.
Next, and that's how it was. And it was kind of like, oh wow, this isn't really what it looks like on TV, But I probably going to get sued for that, so you might need to.
Yeah, well, we can cut
I
it
did
if
have
you
to
need
sign a thing.
Now, let me ask you though, in Florida, anywhere treasure hunting, you're dealing with heat, you're dealing with water, you're dealing with reptiles, insects. Yeah. What's the safety look like? Because you want to go out and you want to have fun, and like you said, people get pumped up and they're really wanting to go at it. What is the safety element on a treasure hunting team, and what does that look like? Is there someone on your team that's really kind of the safety coordinator or the person that says, hey?
Yeah, it's so yes and no. So our guy Aaron is he's kind of the equipment person in terms of not necessarily the electronic equipment, but gear that we need.
Shovels.
Okay. Yeah. Or rope, or we need this, or we need that. That's pretty much Aaron's specialty. He's able to say, okay, we're going to go over here, we're going to need this and this and this, okay, to do this without getting hurt. You know, there's been times we've had to like go down like not a cliff because I don't have cliffs in Florida, but like a steep hill. And we've almost kind of rappelled down.
Get some
and,
rope.
Yeah, you know, and stuff like that. So Aaron makes sure that type of stuff. So, you know, our biggest thing that we run into is just Mother Nature. You know, the things like the thorn bushes, the poison ivy, the poison oak. Those are what really jack us up the most. We've been pretty lucky. Peace River has a huge alligator population.
Yeah.
So there's been times that we've had to get out of the boat at Peace River to walk through, you know, knee deep water. And you're just like, you know, your head's on a swivel.
Yeah.
Because of the alligators. But we've been pretty lucky. Our biggest thing is, you know, okay, if we're going in the woods, okay, we're going to need just simple things like bug spray, you know, long sleeve shirts, you know, we even have the little mosquito nets that we wear on our head sometimes. Certain times of the year, you can't even begin to go out in the woods and not have that stuff.
Solar phone charger.
Yeah.
Stuff
Oh
like
yeah.
that.
We always have a battery backup, you know,
Yeah.
for our phones, that type of thing. Lately we have actually one of the portable, like little power packs that you carry. We have those that will trek along with us, and little things just to make sure. And it all depends on where we're going. You know, if we're going to a residential type neighborhood to dig on someone's property, we need a lot less stuff.
Yeah.
You know, than us going someplace where like, okay, well, you know, something could happen. Someone might get hurt out here. You know, someone might get cut. That type of thing. Because you know we do, you know, have to swing machetes and you know stuff like that. And you know, there has been times where that stuff has happened. Someone's gotten cut. You know, fallen.
Yeah.
You know, twisted their ankle, just like that. But Aaron's pretty good at making sure we have the right gear. But our biggest obstacle is just straight up Mother Nature. The heat and the vines and the plants that Mother Nature throws. That's our biggest thing.
Twisted ankle.
Yeah. Stepping over
know,
the trees.
cypress knees, stuff like that.
That's our biggest thing. Like knock on wood. You know, we've been pretty lucky.
Yeah, for sure. And I know that would be, as a kid, I grew up on the Imperial River. I would jump off the dock into it all the time.
Not even think twice.
And now, you know, if my kids had a field trip to the Cypress Swamp, you know, to walk through it chest deep like I did back in the day, it's scary, man. And that you're going to find a lot of treasure hunters are going to check out on that mission. So I think that's where the good stuff is, though.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's really.
Oh, yeah. The untouched thing, you know, when we were down in the Everglades and stuff, you know, the snakes and stuff down there. And we were making jokes. We're down there like, you know, and everyone talks about these pythons.
They could eat you, dude.
You know, we're all like, oh, wow, you know. And luckily we didn't say anything, but, you know, we were for real, like, concerned about that. You know, where there's a couple guys like, well, you know, should we go armed? You know, just
like, are we trying to make a noise in the water to
what's there? Because that was a little bit, like I said, depending on where we go, you know, we've been pretty lucky. I mean, we haven't had any real wildlife encounters, you know, bears, you know, anything like that, which there's been places where we've trekked some distance, miles and miles into the swamp, the woods. And I've actually made it back going, number one, I can't believe we walked this far. Number two, I can't believe we didn't see something. Yeah. While we're out here.
But what an experience though, because at the end of the day, when you're done and you're talking about it, you really did something that a lot of people don't even dream of doing, getting off the couch, getting out into the real world, and maybe finding something great. But you got this. How many people are on your team? 4 or 5 when you go out usually? Yeah. So you got a nice little group going, and
we always have extra people because some people always want to go.
Oh, absolutely.
And which we don't mind.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And it's really depends on where we're going, what we're doing. Usually, the only time we ever have to limit people is when we're doing something by boat.
Yeah, because you can only get so many people on a boat.
Exactly, and that's usually the biggest thing. When any of the ones we do on land. When we did, I was telling you a little story earlier about the Arcadia one and the Homeowner Brothers. I think everyone that came brought like their wife or their husband, or I mean everyone.
Yeah.
There were so many people there.
Yeah.
It looked like there must have been 30 people there.
Yeah.
You know, watching this.
Yeah.
And so the land ones, you know, we don't care. People get interested. We have a lot of people that will reach out and say, hey, you know, oh, I saw you guys this. Oh, I live in Punta Gorda. I live in Naples. Hey,
I'd like to come out next time.
You know? And I got my own equipment. Hey,
they're subscribing to your website. They're watching you.
Yeah, and we're like, let's go.
Yeah.
You know, and as long as we're able to all get there, we don't have a problem. Lately, we've done a couple that have been on boats, like the one in the Everglades, like that. And we did one of the Everglades, and we had to have multiple boats. That got to be a little too much.
Yeah.
When you start having to, when you have multiple boats, and then you're trying to coordinate because everybody can't go on one boat. It's much, when you're on the land, everyone can drive there. And once
Yeah.
you're there, you have a plan if you have to hike or whatever. But it's
A little more chaotic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The ones on the water are the ones that we can't take as many people, but the ones on land, we offer it to anybody. If someone sees us, reach out to us, message us,
cool.
sends us, hey, I would love to come up.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I tell you, I would love to join sometime.
yeah,
I love that kind of stuff. And
we got a couple coming up in October. That's probably the one that I'm going to want to take you on.
yeah,
We'll talk more about that
yeah,
later.
sounds great.
We've already all talked about it, and that one's a little different story that's up around Charlotte Harbor, up around like Boca Grande.
Still being fed by that same Peace River. A lot of water movement in that area. So really anything that could have been in Peace River could be on Boca Grande's
There's a lot
shore.
of stories. When you start looking about, there's a lot of stories about different pirates that have visited all around Boca Grande.
What were some of the other big names besides Gasparilla that people might have heard of out here?
The Louis Ari guy.
Okay.
He supposedly went there. With it Calico Jack, he supposedly, there's
Blackbeard?
There's a story of, I can't say for sure that, but I know that, but like the Calico Jack guy, there's a story about a supposed treasure that he had found that goes to a tail and down by the 10,000 Islands.
Wow.
That there's a story that he had chased a Spanish ship. They got caught in the storm. The ship got washed up. They found the treasure. They couldn't load it all on his boat. I'm telling you the short version, because his boat was already loaded down. So he returned to, I believe it was the Bahamas, and his plan was to go back in a few months and go back there and get it. But why he was there, that's when he was captured and then ultimately put to death.
Yeah.
And so that whole story is that was a treasure he left, and that supposedly went 10,000 Islands. There's a lot of people, a lot of pirates that have.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of cover to hide in down there.
Yeah.
So
And just in general, and like the whole Charlotte Harbor thing, and there's a lot of history, and like the whole thing with Gasparilla, Tampa does that whole thing. The Gasparilla supposedly went into Tampa Bay, and they turned the whole into a big, every year tradition thing. But
that means Placida, Lemon Bay, Minnesota Key,
all of that,
Boca Grande, Englewood, all of that is rich
history,
with it. Yeah.
Rich in shipwrecks, rich in
Venice Beach.
The stories we have about all of that about so and so's grandfather found a cannon, their commercial fishermen, all kinds of stuff, and it's just that whole area is just like a magnet.
Yeah, I think about this story that I heard about Bonita Springs. Now, if you look, and I'll throw the map up on this one, but basically Estero Bay at the mangrove wall on the east side of the bay. So really where Weeks Fish Camp. Okay, just a little bit north of the camp on that mangrove wall, they say that there was a treasure chest right there on the edge of the bank, and that it just sunk like in a movie. And when you think about treasure chest, one, the chest itself is usually wooden, metal, components on it. It's heavy. Then let's say that it's loaded down with something. If it was a gold bar, silver, if it was coins, if it was, jewels, this would be incredibly heavy. And then when I think of wet sand, I think of it just sinking down and down and down and really never to be found, just swallowed by the earth and never to be found again. Because even as they develop that area, it's not likely that they're going to ever dredge that deep to get it. And so then is that just gone? Ultimately sinks to the middle of the earth where it's so hot that it melts it and incinerates it and it's gone.
It is funny you say that, because we actually come across that quite a few times where people will give us stories and we'll go out, oh, it's right here, and we'll get out there and be like, this is swamp. If someone buried something here,
throw 200 pounds here now and it will just sink.
Throw 200 pounds here right now and come back next week and see how deep it is. So now imagine 70 years later, 100 years later, that's gone.
Yeah.
It would never. And that happens a lot.
Yeah.
And then the same thing with when someone gives us information and we track down and we say, oh, we think it's here. And we go to a spot, we show up to a spot that we want to go dig, and it is just like, it's ankle deep water or mud that we're
screwed.
Yeah. We're not even digging here.
Yeah.
Let's say this treasure's gone. If it was even here.
Maybe there's bedrock somewhere that it would stop
but
at.
How deep are we going to, how deep, and so that's the whole thing. So you're 100% right on that. And there are a lot of stories like that. There's a lot of stories going back to that story about the old man telling the stories, that some of the stories he would tell us about that he swears by were stuff that these chests stuck in the mud, and that they did everything trying to get them, and it seemed
Panicked, maybe
yeah,
even.
and more that they pulled them, it would sink more, and then they had like this pulley system on it, and then this broke, and they went back the next day, then they couldn't find it again, and those kind of stories. It's like, is there truth to it? That could be legit.
Man, that would keep me up as a treasure hunter. I'd be thinking about it all the time, man. Just like you say, things have changed so much. Our world has changed so much. And the way that we look at the world and that we travel the world has changed so much. So now let me ask you with your team, and everybody's probably different, but some people hunt treasure as a business model. And they say, if I find that big necklace on the beach, I'm taking it right to a place to sell it. And I'm going to use that to fund either more equipment or my travels. Is this a business model for you guys, or is this okay. Yeah, I like that.
100%.
So you're not keeping these items if you find them. I mean, you got the railroad spikes and stuff, but if you find something big, you have an agreement that this is to fund.
Yep. That's pretty much what it is. And to be honest with you, just like the thing with when you get to a certain point with YouTube, it can become monetary.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything like that, where anything that we make like that goes right back to the real treasure hunters to cover expenses for different things, to help cover for we have a guy, Mike J, who does all of our editing and stuff on our videos, and it's to go help cover some of those expenses.
Mm-hmm.
None of us are really sitting there with our hand out
right.
Come on. We did have, there's been a couple times over the years where we've been approached about getting a reality show from several networks. And there was a couple times where we got pretty close. And then it became, the thing we didn't like is because then it kind of took the business model. It was no longer about the real treasure hunters, because everyone's contract is different. I might make X amount of dollars per episode. You might make X amount of dollars per episode.
Yeah.
But this guy might make even more X's per episode. And that was one thing that a couple times that we got really close, real close to our own show. And there was a couple times where it almost broke the team up because of that, because it was other people trying to take control and tell us, this is what you're going to do. This is what you're going to say. This is what you're doing.
Now they're telling you, Todd, you can't say that anymore. You're not going to ground the group anymore. We don't like that.
That's where
that doesn't work.
A couple of those things came, and we were like, that's not us, and our biggest thing, I think anyone who treasure hunts, whether you just go do it on a Saturday on the beach, or if you go out looking, and everyone would love to find the next big thing.
Right.
And with that would come a certain amount of maybe a potential wealth. But am I saying I want to find this so I can stop my day job?
Right.
This thought doesn't cross my mind.
Right.
I think about what we talk about is, imagine if we found, hypothetically, let's say Jose Gaspar was real and we found that treasure today. Okay. The doors that would open up.
Yes.
In terms of credibility to look for even more treasures, or how about funding to look for more treasures? We have people that contact us, go and talk about out of state ones, that people contact us about these treasures in all these other states, and someone kind of has where Billy the Kid buried treasure. And, people, legit people contact us about this, even that. And but then it comes down to funding. It's like, okay, so how do I, as an amateur treasure hunter who doesn't make money from this, how do I just tell my job, see ya?
Yeah, I gotta go do this thing.
I'm leaving for 4 weeks, and I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills, but and so it's almost like, is that big find? Is it going to turn around as, I'm buying a new house, new car, or is it, we can think of the adventures
now we can get
think of the adventures that opens up, and the TV show, the whole aspect that even drew us to that when we were even approached with it was never so much about, I want to be a movie star, have a Hollywood, on Hollywood Boulevard. But it was if they're going to fund,
now we can do what we really want.
It's the adventures that we want to do that we just don't have the funding for, that it's on our list. We're going to get to it one day. And knowing that someone has a checkbook that they can write these checks, let's go. When we did the, I don't think I can get in trouble saying this, but we did the Expedition Unknown, for instance, they basically told us, you tell us where you want to dig, you tell us this, you tell us that, we take care of everything. And so we said, this is the story we're going after. This is what we're gonna do.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And we just showed up. This is the day we're filming, and we had to go to this one place that was private property. They got permission. They got, it's like they had it all
So
set
you're
up.
just ready to go. Yeah.
And it was like, wow, how great is this? Imagine you had the capability to where, you can just make a couple phone calls.
Yeah.
You have a legal department.
Yeah.
And you say, hey, I'm
Yeah.
going to come in and dig here. But it was like, that's what we think of is if that big find is like the funding that it could, we have a gentleman that's new to our group. His name is Troy. Troy is, we just recently kind of officially brought him in, but he's always been helping us with different things. He's seriously into treasure hunting, but his primary focus is offshore. He's worked for salvage companies that do. He's actually worked in the salvage treasure hunting business for offshore. His dream is to have his own boat and go out to, and he's been working towards that. He has a boat, doesn't have all the equipment, doesn't have it all for that, but that's one thing that we've all talked about, that it's like, that's something that we would branch off.
Yeah. That could open up.
He has his own theories about some treasures that are out there that are buried under the ocean, that people are looking for, that he's researched on his own. And he says, this is where they're at. I just don't have the equipment yet to get there. And so we look at it as like, okay, no problem. Well, we don't necessarily sell ourselves as being underwater salvage, but that's one of the things that's like, maybe it'll get us to that. Maybe that we can branch out into the ocean to help him with these, because he's helping us with, our land ones, but we're looking for what it'll open up.
Yeah.
The different doors.
Yeah.
That's what works. That's what
Especially
we want.
when you talk about offshore, because ships have sunk for hundreds of years, and
that
they're,
is there's a lot of money.
That's
those
high money.
people. Yeah. I mean, we make jokes about it all the time, but you don't just take off on a Saturday and say, I'm going to go out and look for this sunken.
20 miles out.
Yeah. You know what I mean? You're gone for weeks, months, whatever.
Yeah.
And, I have no experience with that. I'm not going to claim that I do. And that's a whole new realm.
Sonar equipment.
Yeah. But Troy, for instance, that's his baby. That's what he was always into. That's what he's done. But he's all around just a treasure hunter. So when we all kind of found each other, he immediately, hey, can I come with you on this adventure? Can I come? Sure. And the more he came in, the more he became just like valuable,
Contributing.
Yeah. And it's just like, well, hell, he's pulling his own weight,
Yeah.
and that type of thing. But yeah, so it's kind of weird. It's how that works out. But the big treasure, yeah, it's a business model for sure.
Yeah.
'Cause we would like to put it all back in there, and the sky's the limit.
I can see Discovery, History Channel, A&E, one of these guys coming, DIY, maybe, like one of these networks, and it being a big business. But what about a private benefactor that says, I own a plot of land and it's a big project, but my grandpa's grandpa assured me that there's stuff here. I'll fund it if you come in. Is that kind of covered under your salvage agreement where they would do that, or they would hire who you're going to call kind of thing?
Yeah.
Like
they, and so right now we actually do have, a story we've been working on, that a gentleman has these maps that were given to him by someone else, and that it was supposedly only a couple people knew about these supposed treasures, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, he reached out to us, and one of the parcels of land of where something supposedly is, he's in the process of buying it, because he wants us to.
Oh, so he's buying it for that reason.
Yep.
Smart.
He's buying it because it is this vacant piece of property. He is actually in the process of trying to buy it. The whole idea is once he closes, he wants us to, because he's a much older gentleman. He can't no longer partake and go with us, but he wants us to basically be his labor.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so similar to what you're saying.
Contracting a team to come in and do it. And maybe he feels that he can protect that asset better by funding it, or maybe he just feels like he wants to be a part of something really special.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
I mean, he, tells us all the time, he wishes he could have still go, out with us, things like that. And it's crazy how many people out there like treasure hunt, have been treasure hunters, maybe don't call themselves treasure hunters, but
Mhm.
it interests them,
Mhm.
and that they've done it at some point in their life, and then something changed and they couldn't, and
Mhm.
they've had it's and the whole thing is I think it all goes back to like pirates. It's
Mhm.
like no, who doesn't find a pirate tale interesting?
So
And the whole mystery of wow, they steal all this money and they bury
Mhm.
it somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean,
Treasure Island is one of my favorite books as a kid. I have it on Audible. I've listened to it probably in the last 6
Yeah,
months. I've
yeah.
listened to it. It's just a great story because you think
yes,
about
exactly.
the treasure chest,
Yeah.
man.
And there's literally nobody that says, "Oh, I don't
Yeah,
want to hear about
spare
that."
me.
Yeah, and that's the thing is it captivates people, and they all want to be that pirate, out there looking.
Mhm.
And I even today, I mean, I've been doing this all this time, and I'll meet someone new in my life, or meet a new friend or a coworker, something we're talking, and then I'll say something. They'll be like, "Oh, you're a treasure hunter," and I'll be like, "Well, I mean, I'm not Indiana Jones, but I'm an adventurer.
Mhm.
That's what I'm
Mhm.
doing." It's people like, "Oh, why did you never found nothing? Why do you
Right.
keep doing it?"
Right. Because
Okay.
I'm close.
It doesn't,
Yeah.
and that doesn't,
It's like fishing. It's the
yeah,
same thing.
it
man.
doesn't keep me. I'll go out every day. If I could go out every single day, if someone set it up and said, Monday we're going to go look for this treasure, Tuesday we're going to go look for that,
Mhm.
that is where I would be.
Yeah.
Just like fishing. If someone said Monday
That's
we're
it.
going to go Stale Bay and fish, Tuesday
Yeah,
we're
but you
going
just
offshore.
caught one yesterday.
Yeah.
No, that's all the more reason I want to
That's
go
right.
back. Yeah.
That's right.
I want the fight. I want the
Exactly. And
Yeah.
that's what I tell people. It's like, I don't know, am I a treasure hunter? Yeah, but I'm into the adventure.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah. That's really
Yeah.
awesome.
And that's what a lot of people draw. But just like the gentleman that we're working on a story that's trying to buy that land is, he was telling us that he looked for these treasures, but then it was too late in life. And he could never devote the time. And, he stumbled onto us, and,
That's
we
awesome.
kind of clicked,
Uh-huh.
when he met, and he was like, "I want you guys to do this for me." And we're like, let's go.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool. Yeah, I think when I think of treasure hunting, obviously, I wouldn't want anybody that's watching to get discouraged if you don't have equipment, because I believe that treasure hunting can start as simply as walking down the beach and looking down.
Absolutely.
It could be looking in your backyard. But I do want to just mention, if you're interested in treasure hunting, from my limited experience, I would recommend looking in Facebook Marketplace, maybe, or Craigslist for a metal detector. And, there's good, better, best. And look online and read reviews. I would also recommend maybe a pinpointer, which is a small device that's used once your metal detector has gotten you in the area. The pinpointer will literally take you to, if it's a coin or something
Yes,
small.
absolutely. You need that.
Yeah, I know
Absolutely.
Garrett does packages where they'll put a pinpointer in. You'll also need some kind of spade or some kind of digging tool. It doesn't have to be, the expensive multi-tool, but you're going to need something that you can get into ground with. And I think you hit on something earlier that's really important. If you're interested in treasure hunting, or you're actively treasure hunting, remember that as you dig, you need to be able to put back what you've done, and you need to make it look like it's undisturbed. And if you watch some videos of metal detectors, sometimes they'll pull a plug that's so perfect, that it's not even realistic, but they do. And I think that, similar to when you use a golf course, you should try to leave it as you found it, or better. And that, if you do that as an amateur treasure hunter, you will preserve the reputation of your fellow treasure hunters, and you'll find that property owners are more eager to let you dig
That's exactly
if you're
it.
not destroying it.
100%. Like I said, it's most of the time it's the state properties is because of the damage people have done.
Yeah.
And it's easier for them to say no, but you convince someone, hey, I'm going to clean up my mess.
Yeah.
Not to mention, you might be out there today looking for so-and-so pirate's treasure, and tomorrow someone's coming right behind you.
Yep.
And let's leave it, for them to explore also. Not everything.
Yeah, and now that I'm even thinking of that, if I'm the second treasure hunter that comes to the site and it's just ripped all to hell, I'm not even going to have a good time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I kind of want to unwrap the present a little bit.
Exactly.
So that's definitely, there's an etiquette there as a treasure hunter that I think the ones that are really serious about it probably are pretty careful.
Yeah.
And that said, and dirt's made to be dug, man. So get out there and do it. And I can tell you, if you're in Lehigh and you're running a metal detector, you're probably going to find all the nails I've been running over every day on my way to work, because that is one thing. And there's a lot of false finds out in Lehigh.
Oh,
because Lehigh, when you think of when it was actually developed, there were still, like I said, kids playing with coins out in the yards, and I guarantee that there's silver. But you may look back 100 years before an aerial photo would show you, and there could be a structure on a property out there that you weren't even aware of.
Yep.
So I would tell you, it doesn't matter where you're at. Florida's big on Civil War relic. Florida's big on pirate treasure. Florida's big on, what I would call like the loss.
Yeah.
Maybe a little toy or something that could be found. But treasure hunting for me is about the hunt. And as you were talking about this, it made me think of I've only caught one tarpon. But when I caught the tarpon and I was taking a picture of it, I remember almost having remorse that the fight was over.
Yeah.
And that the adrenaline rush that I felt when he jumped out of the water the first time, I knew I wasn't going to feel that
Yep.
maybe ever again.
Probably not.
But I will go out and fish for tarpon again, seeking that. And so I think probably like a casino, one of the most dangerous things that could happen is that you would find something and now you're hooked for life.
Yeah.
Todd Stiger's a treasure hunter. He's a friend of mine. I'm hoping to join him on a hunt. You're in the house with Title Adam at Premier Reputation Title. We're having a really great time. I wanted to end the conversation. Maybe if you could just give me a couple things that you've seen, found, or that you found that people could aspire to. I know you've got the railroad stakes, which I like that a lot.
Yeah. So we did have a story we were following of someone telling us about an old Confederate money stash. We called a safe. And they pretty much said, hey, we have these maps. They kind of said this is where it is. We went out one time. It took us a while. We did a whole bunch of digging. It was one of those areas we talked about that was very wet. And we actually found a piece of what we call is a piece of a metal safe. We have found that. We actually were helping another treasure hunting company, or team, I should say, up a little more north towards Tampa. And while we were excavating a site, we were sifting through, we found a bunch of American Indian pottery.
Oh, cool.
That immediately got taken over by the county and stuff, which is fine.
Yeah.
And, they took that over. We found that. Yeah. That
That'd
was
be really exciting.
Our guy, Aaron, found that. He had rigged himself a little sifter with some tape and some screen, and was just going through the spoils and started finding it, and that was very interesting. That was probably, I did not find that person myself, but he found that, and if he asked him, he would tell you it's probably of his life, you know, of all this stuff.
Did he know when he found it? Did he know that he had something big? Or
He found the first piece, and he said that it just gave him chills. He's like, this is like pottery. And I don't want to tell his story. He might got here one time, but that he'll tell you it's one of the greatest things ever found.
Yeah. Any old guns? Ever see any old?
No. We
I know
found
they're out there.
Old knives.
Mm-hmm.
We found the piece that looks like a. We actually found an old bone tool from the Calusa Indians.
I like that.
That we actually turned into Usepa Island. They actually have on Usepa Island. They have their own little museum. We actually turned it in.
That's cool.
To them.
It's
on
there.
Display.
That's
their
neat.
Museum.
I like that.
So it took
that didn't fund future adventures, but that's the
free.
credibility piece, though.
It was 100%
where you can
free.
go there today and you can see something that.
Well, we
found.
needed their help to figure out what it was, and so it took a little bit. Then once we figured out what it was, but we gave it to them for them to be able to display because it was found on their property. We have the people at Usepa Island allow us to dig on their. Usepa Island?
Yeah.
So we're allowed to dig out there, and but we turn that into them.
And so they have an understanding that you've got credibility with them, and they know they don't have to have somebody right over your shoulder. That if you found something, you turn it in.
Yeah, that's on display there. And we found a little, going back to like the railroad spikes. We found a lot of nails. We did an episode with I'm probably allowed to say the name with Pawn Stars has a spinoff called Pawn Stars Do America.
Yeah.
Okay, so we did an episode with them, and they met us, and we went to the beach. And we did a bunch of metal detecting on the beach. And one of the things that they found was when they were Rick actually found it running the metal detector was an old nail, probably we're talking 1700 era nail.
Wow.
Yeah, right there on the beach. It was probably maybe 8 inches, down. found it. You know, but again, I didn't find it.
Yeah.
The real treasure hunters didn't find it. Rick technically found it from Pawn Stars, but
Well, you were there though.
Yeah,
you still claim that
they gave
feeling.
it to us.
Yeah.
You know, they let us keep it.
Yeah.
So we have that. You know, a lot of little old things like that. You know, a lot of old nails, a lot of some old tools. We found some old tools one time.
I know you guys don't always agree though. So how do you, you know, when you find that nail and you got a guy going, this is from the Passion of the Christ, you know, and you're going, dude, this is from, you know,
so
20 years ago.
Yeah. So we do have, you know, so for instance, we had come across these coins this one time that looked like Spanish reals, and we were having a hard time determining if they were authentic or where they
Could
were.
be, yeah.
And type thing. So we actually sent it to a university and had them, and they checked it out for free here in Florida, and they put it to their archaeological department, and they checked it all out. They came back, told us what it was composed of, told us when it was most likely that it was from, and they call it what's called a cob coin. So they told us all the history on what it was and stuff, you know. And so there, you know, there's been some things, you know, it's we find a lot of things when we're out there, the old little nails, little things, and you almost forget you find that because, you know, it's like you look, oh, okay, cool, goes to your pocket,
Keep going.
out. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you almost forget about it until someone brings it up.
Yeah.
Oh, have you ever found this?
Yeah.
Oh, you know what?
Yeah.
I did find this.
What I like about that, and I think that people watching should take note, is that you can get information that you need. Todd and his team, they're going a little deeper. They're asking people for help. They're getting free help.
It's
a
out
lot
there.
of people would think that you would have to pay a fee to a lab or something. People want to help you with this stuff because they're interested in it as well. This is antiquity. This is something that is fascinating. It's valuable. It's part of our history as a country even. So I think that that's something that you should try to find people that can help you with that.
It's out there. The universities, you know, you contact them. Like University of Florida, they have this archive department of stuff up there. It's just unbelievable.
And even now with an iPhone, though, I can take a picture of something and then hit a button, and AI will tell me
what it is,
where you can buy it, you know. And so that's interesting too.
Yeah, the help is out there, and we've really never had issues with when we have questions finding, you know, a professional to answer that question. Most of them are there to, you know, hoping that maybe you found something that's the next rewrite history, you know, type thing.
Yeah.
So they're like, hell yeah, I'll look at that and see what it is. And it's just this, you know, that type thing. So like I said, we've had pretty good luck with that type of stuff. But the other thing I want to touch on just is a funny thing is you talked about the people watching, you know, to get your my biggest thing I'm gonna tell people, if you're interested, read. Find some books. I don't care if it's online. I don't care if it's a book you find on Amazon. I don't care. Find stories. I don't care if it looks like it's a fiction book, nonfiction book. If it's start reading it, you know, and you'd be amazed of what is out there in our own backyard.
That's a really great point.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people hear pirate, they think fiction. It's very real, guys. I mean, this the story's being told every day. And so that's reading is the foundation before you even get out there.
Yeah.
And now you have Google Earth, which is huge. I would think if I was a metal detectorist that Google Earth would be great to just literally zoom in and scope out access points, you know,
roads, how to get there. I mean,
hazards.
I mean, let's just be honest. The internet in general, being able to find, one of the biggest things to us is the aerial photos. You know, even if you don't go and get an actual archive, but if you're just able to find, because sometimes on Google, I don't know if a lot of people notice on Google Earth, sometimes when you're looking at a photo up in the corner, it'll tell you the date.
Yes.
Well, it'll tell you other dates.
You could like click it and go,
Like, so this is the photo from 2023. Well, you click this, here's the photo from 2018. And here's the photo from 2015.
Yeah, and in some areas, man, that's changed a lot. Yeah.
In some areas, it hasn't changed at all.
Yeah.
You know, and there's been times where we pulled up the aerial photos, like I said, University of Florida, they have a vast aerial archive. And, you know, we'll look at an aerial photo from the 1950s and then look at a now photo and be like, this isn't even the same area. The river doesn't even go the same way. The road doesn't go. We're never going to find anything here. This is total. But the research online, the internet is, that's it. But
There's a lot of lore in there too,
yeah,
right? And that's healthy.
I'll
That's
tell you
part of
what,
that's part of the passion.
footwork, the getting out there and doing it. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, you got to do it while you're young because as we get older, it's harder to go.
I was a lot
through.
younger when I started this.
Yeah,
I'll tell you that.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I can feel it a lot more when I have to crawl underneath bushes and crawl underneath logs and step over logs. And when I get back home, I walking half bent over.
Yeah.
So
I can hear in your voice, Todd's going to be hunting treasure for a long time to come.
as long as I can.
Yeah, that's really
as long
great,
as I can. Unless it's outlawed, they tell me I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and as people make land grabs and more property gets, absorbed up and bought and fenced and marked private, it becomes a little bit more challenging. But I think we've got a lot of conversation to go back to.
Yeah.
If you're interested in treasure hunting, I'm going to put the link to the YouTube channel, to the website, Todd's contact information in the show notes. Definitely do your homework and ask questions. Final thought, competition among treasure hunters. You ever show up at a spot and somebody's already on the lead, or somebody tell you, hey, we're working this area? Do you cooperate or do you compete?
So without getting in trouble or ruffling feathers. So the biggest issue we found is there are other treasure groups in the immediate area, Southwest Florida, that we've actually have worked together with. They might have a story they're working on and they want extra research, or we have equipment that they don't have, and then they'll bring us in on it's their story. We're there as guests. The actual one where I was telling you the story where Aaron found the pottery, that was us helping out another treasure crew. It seems like we all work together for the most part, where the only time we've ever had conflict is when things have come up to where when we're doing videos, I didn't get enough screen time. Well, I was off doing this and you didn't show me. You only showed this. But meanwhile, me and my other guy were doing it. So
it's when the camera's running.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
makes sense.
All of us on the phone, all of us, it almost comes down when you want that notoriety. That's when people's egos come out. That's when but all of us sitting on Zoom calls, all of us going out, trumping through the woods, being videotaped, I say, no issues. Laughing, joking, going for drinks after, going for lunch after, whatever. But then when the video comes out, or when we have this issue happened a couple of times where next we have a news station contacting us who wants to do an interview, but they don't ask everybody for the interview. They call and just say, hey, Todd, come do this interview.
Yeah.
And then everyone else is like, what the?
Yeah.
And, that type of thing. So it seems like whenever it starts to be where it comes to fame, that's where people get,
But when they're just sitting there talking about a potential find,
when
it's
we're
like
out there in the
fishermen.
field,
it's all love.
Yeah,
I think that's probably not just treasure
I
hunting.
think that's human nature.
That's human nature. That's ego. And just, like you said, everybody wants to be in on the big find.
Absolutely.
But, I have a brother that's 8 years older than me, and he would tell me like, hey, you might not have got a hamburger. I let you ride in the back seat. You got to hang out with everybody. Well, anyways, we're here after hours. I want to thank Todd for coming in and joining us. My name is Adam. I do title. I'm with Premier Reputation Title. And if you're buying, selling, building, refinancing, or doing a deal in Florida or Michigan, tag me in. I'm local, I'm licensed, and I'm ready to help. I hope that you found some information today in our podcast that will help you in your treasure hunt. And remember, be safe. Check the notes for all of the information to get in touch with Todd and the Real Treasure Hunters below. And we hope to have him back, maybe even with your team another time.
For sure.
Thanks again, man.
Amen. Yeah.
That's a wrap on Title Adam in the House. Subscribe, share, and tag in Title Adam when it's time to close. You want to be a guest? Book your spot. The link's in the show notes.